very first speaker. Leila Fataar is the perfect person to open today's forum. Why? Because the title of her brand new book, Culture-Led Brands, drive growth, build resilience, and cultivate resonance. That's a fantastic book. And Leila Fataar is giving away today some copies of her book as well to those who will ask questions, and the most popular questions, of course, will get the book. But here's a twist. Leila herself is not taking questions because she can't join us in person due to some unforeseen circumstances, but she didn't want to miss out, so she recorded a special presentation just for us. So let's get this started now. Here is Leila Fataar.
Hello, Baltic Brand Forum. I'm so sorry to not be there today, but I'm looking forward to spending a few minutes to explain a little bit about my approach in this new era of culture-led brands. Let's start off with a little story to give you a bit of background.
I get asked a lot about what I actually do.
In a nutshell, I help big global brands become relevant and maintain relevance in culture. Didn't start that way, though.
The prohibition of the African National Congress, the Pan-Africanist Congress, the South African Communist Party, and a number of subsidiary organizations is being rescinded.
Apartheid was dismantled in 1994 and I moved from South Africa to London in 95 at the age of 22, making this year, 2025, my 30th anniversary both here and in my career. I wanted to be where people mixed, where you could be yourself. I knew London was home. I felt it, even before the plane landed. I'm also really lucky to be part of Gen X. We were all about DIY, all about youth and fandom cultures of fashion, music, art, skate, and rave culture, especially jungle music, where I found my people, my community, my way of thinking, incorporating multiple communities across all these other cultures from all varieties of backgrounds. But there was no big career planned. I wonder what I was thinking with 200 pounds and no contacts or job lined up. In that first week I arrived, I grabbed a chance opportunity that changed the course of my life. With no plan B and no extra cash, I had to make this work for me. So I created my career from scratch, and I mean really from nothing, grabbing any opportunity to build on my skills and learn. I stayed forever curious about everything and everyone around me. But my mum always said that I had an intangible ability to understand what resonates in the world. Guess I've created my career around that skill. But as soon as I could, I've tried to open the gates for others like me, whether that's through my own businesses or in-house at big global brands. This underpins who I am really because of where I'm from. I found my niche in respectfully and credibly embedding big brands into culture. It was only later, really, that I truly realized the impact of my background and my interest on shaping my career and life, both then and still now, in fact. I still love it. My archive is packed with tons of stories to tell. This journey has not been easy, but it has been amazing. And really, this is a sincere shout out to everyone who's been on it with me, who supported me and criticized me. It's time for the next 30 years. Wow, every time I look at that, I feel emotional. But it also helped me articulate what I call the culture stack. And I share this for the first time in my book, Culture-Led Brands, which I launched and published in June this year. And the culture stack is actually really simple, but everyone has one. You in the audience, your consumer, your boss, the CEO, and even the shareholders. And it's because everyone has these two cultures that stack on top of each other. One is the inherited culture. So it's where you were born, whether you're neurodiverse, whether you've got green eyes, whatever sexuality you might be. I mean, these are non-selected cultures. And it's really important because this is the foundation of who everyone is. Well, this then stacks as you get older and you start sort of identifying the areas of interest, be it fashion, music, Korean food, cats, these become interest cultures that stack on top of that inherited culture. So you still see those interest cultures or fandoms through the lens of your inherited culture. And it's really interesting because this is really the foundation
of everything and my approach to everything that I do with my work and my life, actually. Because for me, culture is everything. It's the stuff of life. It's what we wear. It's what we eat. It's what influences us. It's how we behave. It's what communications channels we use. It's everything. But what it does is, and how it gets impacted, is through three areas of reality. What politics and policies are impacting us on the day-to-day in our countries and globally. How the media spreads information about everything that influences how we think, what we take in. You know, in this era of distant and misinformation, critical thinking becomes really, really important to what we're actually seeing across all types of media. And then there's technological adoption. Are you online? Do you engage with social media? How does it actually work with AI for you? So these three areas are always in every single generation, and it really, really impacts what culture is and how we sort of ingest and consume that. But importantly, it's a global connector of communities. Whether you're an inherited culture, so whether you're in your own country or whether you've moved to another country but still keep to the same communities or engage with the communities of your culture, of where you're from, so the diaspora. And it's also a global connector of interest cultures and fandoms. So if you like hip-hop music, you like it whether you're in, Lithuania or whether you're in New York. But it will look different through the lenses of your inherited culture. But those three areas of technology, politics, and media impact both of these cultures. And that's how people see your brand too. So your brand within the interest culture areas is how they see your brand. And you really need to consider what that means for you and what your value systems are that connect to inherited and interest cultures as well. Because we are really in the most transformational moment in history. So this idea of the reality that we're looking at, that I talked about just before, is really changing and uncertain for the first time, really, really, really uncertain. Brands are under pressure. And there are four areas that I really want you to think about today. One is the funnel, the traditional marketing funnel. As politics, media, and technology transform the way we think and behave like never before, whether you're doing stuff in real life, online, and through AI, brands and companies need to adapt and flex to stay ahead here and experiment at this point on their next version of what that's going to be. It's also important when thinking about the climate crisis, supply chains, about meaningful innovation. And I'm not only talking about products, I'm talking about marketing supply chain, content creation. Brands and companies need to hold a mirror up to their brand, company, products, and services and innovate across the board to make sure they're fit for purpose today and tomorrow as we change in this transformational time. And then this idea of reach. We know this is something that with any brand is the most important. How much scale can we get? How many video views? That's cool and we need that. But relevance becomes more and more important as this avalanche of content and products overwhelm people. How can you make sure that your product and service is clear on the role for your consumers and your audience and how that makes sense in their lives as opposed to just being shouted at or brand out? And then also thinking about what I call depth and hype. How do you create content that moves across the channels of fragmented media, but making sure that you're not just creating these viral moments that don't mean anything. Like add a message, make sure that you're breaking a stereotype, make sure you're pushing the world forward positively in this transformational time. So this hype and depth I talk about as well. So these four areas is something that I think brands, no matter what size you are, should be looking at when thinking about how they act and behave in this era of culture-led brands. And this is really important because there's so much confusion around what cultural relevance actually is. And so for me, having worked in this area for 30 years successfully, both in-house at Adidas and Diageo, and through two businesses, Spin and now Platform 13, I'm really, really certain that cultural relevance is not a marketing output. It is not a TikTok campaign. It is actually a business growth driver if done properly. It goes upstream as part of your business strategy and cascades across your products, your services, your design, and your marketing. This is important because it's not a vertical, it's a horizontal. But that also means that internal behaviors and operations need to also be set up to be able to do that. And that's a really interesting place that I get to, is organizational change to become a culture-led brand and to do culturally relevant work. It's really important. It's an input, not an output. So it's just something for you to think about. And I've defined it in very, very simple terms. I've defined culture-led brands deeply and respectfully connect with intersectional audiences, because culture stacks, very intersectional, delivering brand activities, products and services that are relevant in the context of what's happening in the audience, your target audience life, and the wider world. The transformational era, it's not enough to just be talking to sell. You've got to make sense in the world in this transformational time that we're in. So, it's not easy. It's not easy. But once you do it, and once you find that cultural positioning, everything else filters out in a much, much better way for you. And that also means that once you find that thing that only you can do in the world, I call it the cultural positioning, you really start to remove yourself from being a competitor, because now you are shaping and leading within your area of play. So category leadership and cultural leadership becoming very, very, very different things. I talk about it more in the book. But I wanted to share this case study with you. And this is one of my career highlights. I was in-house at Diageo, and I worked across the portfolio of drinks brands, of which Smirnoff is one. And we were thinking about how we actually create some positive noise around the brand, deeply penetrated in distribution. So probably any pub, any club, any bar you go into and ask for vodka and Coke is probably Smirnoff. Any festival you go to, it's probably Smirnoff. But that was all fine from a financial point of view. But from a brand point of view, it really, really wasn't cutting through. So we were looking at the brand positioning, which was around good time brand, And from that, of course, the more inclusive you are on a dance floor, the better it is. I mean, just think about my own experience on the dance floor. It's definitely where I found myself and where I found my community. So we know that this is a beautiful, happy place. But what was happening was, at festivals around the world, only 17% of headliner DJs were female, trans, or non-binary. And we wanted to go, okay, if we are the brand for festivals, from a product point of view, we can also be a brand for festivals from an inclusivity point of view. And it doesn't have to be boring. This doesn't have to be worthy. We wanted it to be cool. So we worked with a number of our partners, Live Nation, Spotify, publications that we worked with, clubs that we worked with, all the partners that made up that community in music. We worked with them to be able to double the amount of headliners over 3 years through an incredible program of activities across all of those different partnerships, making sure that we were identifying what the issues were, why they weren't getting to those headlining jobs, and then giving them the tools to be able to do that. An incredibly satisfying project. And I still get people come up to me today and go, wow, that Women's Headliners project was incredible. I still remember it. And that means something. But that also changed what people thought about Smirnoff. And that was really, really positive for the brand. A lot more in my book to be able to go through a deeper case study about that. So really, I want you to take away 3 things today of how you can think about your plans for your brands, no matter whether you're a big brand or a smaller brand. Think about culture-led creativity. So when you're thinking about that product, that service, that creative ad campaign, that social campaign, think about what is happening in culture and the realities that are happening for your audience and in your fandoms. Don't just jump onto trending topics, because that just goes so fast and then it's gone. Think about what your brand and why your brand needs to answer the demand that maybe is created to get to that trending topic. So think about that a little bit. Think about that shareability I talked about before. How do you create relevance and not only reach? Because reach will come with that shareability, but relevance doesn't come with reach. So it's really, really, really important to think about how you create activities that people want to share and not just that people see and get measured through eyeballs. And then think about this fragmented media. How do you create a transmedia strategy to make sure your brand is discovered by new audiences? Because search is also changing. Again, that transformational moment in history around technology. How do you make sure that your brand is discovered all the time in different places, in the right way, in the right format? So think about those three things, because these are real applications you can do as soon as you get out, maybe tomorrow, after today's conference. And hopefully that's helpful to just give a bit of an inkling about what needs to happen in this new era of culture-led brands. Thank you, and hopefully I'll see you in real life next year. Thank you very much.
Leila Fataar.